author, columnist, managing editor of LibertyNation.com, podcast host and conservative policy advocate.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's special Christmas edition, we raise a cup of good cheer and examine the very best and the very worst of 2022, and hopefully have a little bit of fun along the way. I want to take a moment to say a special thank you to our listeners out there in America and indeed around the world. A very Merry Christmas to you and to your families. On today's show, we have a special panel to discuss everything political, media, and hope related. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. With Christmas upon us, it's impossible not to reflect upon the year that has passed, and of course, it's time to evaluate the adventures and exploits that have moved us so much. With this in mind, we're fortunate to be joined by our special Liberty Nation Christmas panel that comprises Editor-in-Chief Lisa K. Donner, National Columnist Sarah Cowgill, and Legal Affairs Editor and regular guest on our Talking Liberty segment, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza. Welcome, panel, and may I say, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I feel the cheer already. So, panel, I'm very grateful to have you all here. And I want to kick this off by asking you what you thought was the most significant happening this year. How about you start us off, Lisa?
Well, you know, I really went back and forth on this one. When you told me we were going to talk about this, I thought, isn't it? Because it was so expected. It was so anticipated. Graham Noble wrote a great article about it. But I have to say that, in my estimation, even though we knew it was coming, the biggest story of the year is the J6 committee referring Donald Trump to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. Basically because it's historic. I mean, you know, if you look at the rundown of other presidents and, you know, the hot water they got into, you basically have Ulysses S. Grant, who was arrested for speeding in his horse and buggy.
He's a class act. He's a $50 guy. $50 guy.
But the police let him off with a fine. Then you have Spiro Agnew, and we'll talk a little bit about that Hugh Hewitt article in a prominent Washington newspaper later. But he resigned in '73 after pleading, as our ESQ, Mr. Cosenza would say, nolo contendere, which is no contest to a felony tax evasion charge. And then, of course, there's Richard Nixon, who was famously by a grand jury, was an unindicted co-conspirator. Sorry. So, you know, Trump really, you know, he doesn't have the indictment. He's just been referred for the indictment. But it is pretty historic.
Yeah, that's definitely a big story. And as you mentioned, we will be talking about Trump's travails in the later segment. It's really one of those ones that's captivated America. Now, how about you, Sarah? What story has glued you to the digital broadsheets this year?
Well, honestly, I mean, I agree with Lisa to almost 100%. It is historic to see what's going on with former President Trump, and he's just a flashpoint. You know, I've never seen anything like this in all the years I've covered politics. But I do believe when it comes down to it, the biggest story is Twitter, and the Elon Musk is playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. I mean, he is 10 moves ahead of everybody, and he's literally people are losing their minds over this guy. And I think that's got to be the biggest story, especially with all of the, you know, the collusion going on between some government agencies, regular meetings with Twitter employees and FBI people, and all of this going on in a lead up to a 2020 election. I think that's key, that people know it and understand it. Now, whether it's going to be reported as such by, you know, any other media other than the conservative side, or maybe even some down the middle people. But right now, I think that could upend how we do our elections eventually.
You know, it's funny you chose that one, Sarah, because I've been following For My Sins, Adam Schiff and Ted Lieu on the Twitterverse specifically, and they've been trying to poo-poo everything that's come out. It's almost as though they have something invested in this not being a true story. Scott, what do you make of Sarah's roundup piece there?
Well, I think that I agree that that is one of the most consequential stories of the year. I think that it's not just that Elon is playing chess and the rest of us are playing, or the rest of them are playing checkers. It's that they've been playing 4D chess all along, and we're now just finding out about it.
Well, that's
They've
true,
corrupted to the core and made rotten these social media establishments, and Elon is breaking it loose, and it's the exposure that they can't manage and can't suffer through laying bare what they actually did, and it's vile and disgusting, and it's totally corrupt. So I think that looking backwards, we'll think that is as big. I actually disagree that I don't think looking in hindsight will we think that the reference to the committee from the committee's reference to the DOJ for prosecution, to me at least, I just see that as another step down on the staircase to madness for the Trump deranged crowd. It's just a political, what can we do, like the next thing, rather than something that I think, in 10 years from now, looking back, will we say that was the big thing. But before you respond to me, I'll just say, for me, as the legal affairs editor for Liberty Nation, the reversal of Roe v. Wade and the decision in the New York State rifle and pistol case, I think those historically, looking back, will be the most impactful events of the year.
Let me just add one thing in here, Mark, if I may. Sarah, I was thinking about Twitter, but the problem is that the coverage on this is so poor. There's so many people that don't know about these 6 parts. They don't know. Even fairly dialed in political people are not aware of the 6 or 7 Twitter drops. And so that kind of had me thinking. But on the other hand, Scott, as you mentioned, years and years from now, we will remember those Supreme Court things. I don't know that the Donald Trump thing is going to be remembered. But again, the coverage is the exact opposite of the Twitter thing. Mm-hmm. In other words, we have this screensaver called the newspaper wall, and it's every front page of every newspaper every day. And so if you're just sitting there, like waiting for something, spend a couple minutes, every single newspaper had Trump recommended for indictment. Every single newspaper. And I have yet to see the front page of a single newspaper except for the Washington Examiner, I think, or the Times, something like that. Nobody has Twitter.
I think it was Instapundit's Glenn Greenwald that said the goal of the mainstream media is to find these stories that are, challenging to the to the establishment and cover them with a pillow until they stop. So that's the coverage that you're seeing.
It's a line for the ages.
One thing I agree with the coverage aspect, but let's face it, Trump sells. Whether you love him or hate him, anytime Trump is in the news, you want to look at it. You want to see what's going on. And, some people are saying, oh, he's being hammered again. And they're lies. And the other people are going, when is he going to go to jail? And so it sells, and it's going to keep, his name in the news as long as it will continue to sell. But I think in hindsight, if we look back, say 5 years or 10 years from now, I think the Twitter thing will become more important than it is because, agreed, nobody's covering it.
Yeah, not that I'm being the judge giving scores on which one's correct, but I think I'm kind of swayed by Sarah's here because it seems to me that it's not just Twitter. It's not just Twitter that was paid more than $3 million by the U.S. government for its assistance in helping out the FBI or whoever, the intelligence agencies that were attempting to use it and utilize it to suppress Americans' free speech. It's not just Twitter, is it? It's Facebook. It's all the other ones who have been in constant communication to what I believe is the detriment of the American people, the democratic process, and the constitutional republic itself. Now, with that rant over, we'll be back with our special Christmas panel to discuss the reindeer games for the former president. Don't go anywhere.
Ho, ho, ho.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Christmas means many things to many different people, but perhaps the one thing we all have in common is the love of a special gift, whether that's given or received. So on today's special Christmas panel with Liberty Nation's Editor-in-Chief Lisa K. Donner, national columnist Sarah Cowgill, and legal affairs editor Scott D. Cosenza, we asked what would be the best Christmas gift for American conservatives this year. Now, we can do this for an actual physical thing, or we can even talk about what you'd like Santa to deliver constitutionally for you. It's entirely up to you. Scott, why don't you start us off? If you had a direct line to Santa Claus, perhaps similar to that of the FBI to Twitter bosses, what would you ask for?
An end to the war in Ukraine, and or at least our support of it. War is the health.
You're referring to the 68 billion plus 40 billion here, I guess.
Indeed, I am. And also, as important, if not much more important, is the notion that we're increasing our hostility with Russia, one of two global superpowers who we could eventually end up in nuclear conflict with. And I think it's important for us to be cautious on that front generally. And also, especially, war powers all the negative things about a state. You know, our hyperinflation is just, that's like a gasoline can on that, to print money, to send it there. It basically just enforces all, you know, anti-conservative values and bad values about the health of the state. And I think it would be great if, you know, if we ended it. On the opposite side, for gifts, it's funny because given my answer to the wish, the gifts are guns and ammo. The best thing you can give a conservative in America is guns and ammo, and this differs by state law about what's legal and how you have to do it. So I encourage people to check those state laws before they do it. A good resource is to go to the gun shop, a smaller, you know, locally owned gun shop, and ask them. They usually have their pulse on the you know, the latest regs, but those are the best gifts, Mark.
And of course, if you do receive that one, do not keep the Christmas tree too close to the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
There. Now, how about you, Lisa? What gift or gifts do you think conservatives would enjoy, whether that's a physical gift or something constitutional or legal?
Well, I stayed away from something meaningful like world peace, but I went totally superficial, like what can I wrap under the tree?
And this is what I want. This is what I like to hear.
And I went
Superficial.
directly to Etsy, which is ETSY. They have handmade gifts there, and everybody kind of comes up with their own thing and starts their own little business. I think it's just a wonderful entrepreneurial spirit of where Americans are now. And I came up with 4 great conservative gifts. The first one is something called the Liberal Tears candle, the Liberal Tears candle from Etsy, hand poured with soy from the Dirty Candle Company. It has a fresh rain scent with a little dash of entitlement, safety pin not included. The second one I came up with was the best conservative t-shirt, which I thought was awesome. And for those who are just listening on radio, it's navy blue with white letters, and it says, "When I die, don't let me vote Democrat."
It's a classic message for the ages, no doubt.
Classic.
You have to think a little bit on that, but I think it's worth the time. The third one was the Shady Bunch, a takeoff of the Brady Bunch, for those of you who don't remember that show. The Shady Bunch mug with pictures of prominent Democrats. I won't name them, but you can imagine who is among the Shady Bunch. And my personal favorite is the Let's Go Brandon on the Rocks whiskey glass with a nice little hashtag in the corner. So those are the 4 that I'm going to wrap up and put under my tree for my conservative friends.
Those are pretty good.
Some
I think
whiskey to go into the glass, and that's a winner for me.
Oh yeah,
Excellent.
that's a deal then,
excellent.
Right? That's a deal. Sarah, tell us what the Heartlanders want to find beneath the tree this year.
Funny you should ask.
An
Mark.
Exocet missile, no doubt.
Well, I was at my local watering hole, my favorite place on the planet, the Foxhole. And
Shout out to the Foxhole. Thanks for being fans of Liberty Nation over there.
Hi, Foxhole. Merry
Hi,
Christmas.
Foxhole. Merry Christmas.
The Foxhole
Sponsoring
plays our
Sarah's
show,
Buzz,
so
from time to
we love
time.
the Foxhole. And I overheard a conversation about what somebody wanted for Christmas, and it was the scene from Christmas Vacation, the Chevy Chase movie. And he said, what we need is a Cousin Eddie to take the RV to the White House, wrap up Joe Biden, and bring him here with a bow on his head and make him apologize to all of us for the fact that we don't have enough money this year to have Christmas. So
we just watched it last year. We watch it every year.
I watch it every year, but I looked over there. I'm like, all right, I'm stealing that one. I'm going to use that
Sarah.
somewhere.
That's a great That's a great.
I happen
We
to
need
know.
we need cousin Eddie on his way to the White House.
Everybody needs a cousin Eddie. That'd be played by Randy Quaid, I believe, who is
It was
a very
played
active dude on
perfectly.
Twitter.
He's forbidden by law from approaching the White House, I think, at this point.
Hey, didn't he save America on Independence Day?
Absolutely. I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
Something like
did.
that. Something like that.
I think he's on the conservative side of life. I just don't know for a fact.
Very much so. I do recommend you follow his Twitter account. He's funny.
He's a
He's
good follow.
interesting. Yeah, he's a cool guy in many ways. Now let's do a quick wrap on this. We did mention Christmas Vacation there, Chevy Chase National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but I always like a Christmas movie. I rarely watch movies, but when I do, it's at Christmas. So I know for a fact that there's one movie that Lisa Donna watches every year. Could you give the recommendation to our listeners there, Lisa?
Yes, and my husband and I argue about this. He says it's not a Christmas movie. I say clearly is a Christmas movie, and that is Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney in A White Christmas. Love
Christmas.
that. Love that.
I disagree.
It only has two Christmas
I thought we
scenes
were
in it, the
doing
beginning
Die
and the
Hard.
end.
I was like, yeah, Die Hard.
Die Hard is great. Yeah.
Which is a Christmas movie, by the way.
Absolutely.
I was excited about it.
Certainly.
I'm
I
like,
believe
somebody believes the way I
believe
do.
Sarah Cowgill here, you wrote an article on libertynation.com about, yes, Veronica, Die Hard is a Christmas movie a couple of years ago. And you were comparing, I think, the White
It has
Christmas
more
with Bing
Christmas. It
Crosby
has more Christmas hints
to Die
and
Hard.
decorations and analogies and everything than any other Christmas movie out there.
Okay,
No, you're
Scott.
right. Die Hard is a fabulous, but
It's a
again, I
fabulous
get
Christmas movie.
blowback. People say it's not a Christmas movie.
Well,
Oh,
you know,
it is.
Don
these are
McClane
Tell him to look at
fighting-
my article. I proved it.
To reunite
I
his
proved it.
family for Christmas. That's what
yeah,
he's
what
doing.
could be more
I know.
Christmassy? Scott, what's your go-to Christmas movie?
Well, there it is, Die Hard. Absolutely. You got to see Hans Gruber try to take it away from him. It's
Every year, I think he's going to manage it this time, right?
Definitely. Yeah, that and A Miracle on 34th Street with the courtroom scene. Not to be, just play to type. I'm a lawyer, but I do love that scene when they bring the mail bags up and they say, if this isn't Santa, the U.S. government recognizes this guy. Where do they bring the Santa mail? Right to him. So case closed. You got to love it.
Okay, I think Sarah, quick one from you. Is it
I
Die
just
Hard?
did it.
Oh, okay, Die Hard. And for me, it's got to be It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
It's an
Never seen it.
amazing movie. It has
Somehow I've
everything that I
lived in
want
America
from a
50
movie.
years and have never seen that film.
Every time
Never
a bell
seen
wings
it.
an angel
No,
you
gets
gotta
his
see it.
wings.
It is
Yeah.
it's a true classic, and I hope everybody enjoys it this winter. Okay, in just a moment we'll be back with our Christmas panel to tackle the 2022 Christmas hangover. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
It's been a turbulent year for Donald Trump, and it seems that this December has been one of the toughest. As Democrats prepare to take the minority position in the House of Representatives, they're unloading every barrel available at the former president in hopes that enough will stick going into the next campaign season. Now, we're back with our special Christmas panel of Lisa K. Donna, Sarah Cowgill, and Scott D. Cosenza. Sarah, tell me, is this a last-ditch effort before all the majority powers from the House evaporate? Or is it just the culmination of events that have been, let's call it, brewing up over the last 4 years?
Who did you ask?
You, Sarah, you.
Oh, I thought you said Scott. Okay, well,
Your turn.
my apologies. I think it's a perfect storm of all the above that you mentioned. They're going to try to take him out at the knees, so he's not allowed to run for president. And in the meantime, they're just building up momentum of hate. I've never seen anything like this. So they can't do anything between now and when the new Congress is installed. And we know what's going to happen then. They're going to make a lot of noise and then probably not do much of anything. That's just my take on the last 5 or 6 years in politics. So I could be wrong. I would love to see some action going one way or the other, but I don't think so. I think we've got some timid people in the Republican Party, and we've got some, bullheaded, we're just going to, blow through the China shop folks in the Democratic Party. So, they might not be in power, but they're going to still maintain a level of power with the news media, with any kind of messaging that you see. I'm not sure that the Republicans really have much to offer, even though they have taken control of the House.
It does seem there, Sarah, that what you have is a situation where the timidity of the representatives and the senators, and it's often an advantage to be in the minority party because you can scream and you can shout and you can make hay while there's no responsibility required of you. And it seems to me that the Republicans have actually done a very poor job of this over the last couple of years. Now, Scott, let's talk about these criminal referrals from the January 6th committee. And I love the fact that it's a criminal referral. And I think people take those words far too seriously, don't they? Because, for example, if I sent a letter to the Justice Department, for example, saying to, I don't know, prosecute, let's say, Joe Biden for such and such crimes, wouldn't that also be called a criminal referral? I guess what I'm asking is,
absolutely. I've issued many criminal referrals when I to all kinds of agencies when I say, go after these SOBs that are doing X, Y, Z. But unfortunately, it doesn't make the headlines. My criminal referrals, the guy at the end of the bar is making a criminal referral when he says, throw them all, bury them underneath the prison. But yeah, it's news because the people who write those headlines want it to be news. I mean, it is. I don't mean to take it away, as Lisa said. It is historic in the sense that it hasn't been done before, but it's just like why we're seeing, no news, relatively speaking, of the corruption of social media companies and lots of news over this. It's a story that attracts both the writers and the editors, and to a large extent, their dedicated audience, I think. So you're right that this is a zero in terms of its implication for the criminal law. Like, nobody's like, some congresspersons think I should be prosecuted. That's not a thing that is happening in lawyers' offices, generally speaking.
all right. And just very briefly, Scott, a quick follow-up on that. There's 3 charges about not complying with events, obstruction of justice, blah, blah, blah. But there's also the one where they're trying to bar Trump from holding office ever again.
That's the best one for them, right?
That's the one, right?
One. Yeah.
Is that the one? Now, does that hold? Obviously, the referral itself doesn't hold any more weight than the others. But
none of it does. It's all just.
Do you suspect that particular one is the one that will continue to gain steam and momentum through the press?
No, I think they'll be done after November. We'll have to see if the DOJ, moves to prosecute Trump, and I think they may, but I don't think that the referral from Congress will have any bearing on it. It's just a matter of whether or not Biden or who's ever pulling the strings for Biden and Merrick Garland want that to happen. That's basically.
Yes, Barack Obama is still using his pen and phone, we believe, eh? Now, Lisa, you are
a criminal referral from him. That's something you want to be scared of,
yeah.
Right? That'll move the mountain.
Lisa, all of us at Liberty Nation, we always seek out your take on these matters as our chief political maven. What do you make of the situation?
Well, I think we can sort of poo-poo the fact that there might be not a lot of teeth to their recommendation, but it is, again, it's historic, and I think it also points to the other issues that really are going to be dogging Donald Trump. And a couple of weeks ago, I wrote an article called "Turbulent Waters: Dead Ahead for Donald Trump." I didn't think it was going to be a good Christmas, and it's shaping up that way for him, and it's really rough. They've got this special counsel, Jack Smith. He was appointed by Attorney General Garland. He's looking into 2 things, right? The events of J6 and the Mar-a-Lago thing. And if you look back on Jack Smith's history, he was a special counsel in the business with Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, and that was just a horrific situation, so much so that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the conviction that Smith got. So that's real trouble. Then there's the real estate company in New York, which was found guilty of defrauding tax authorities. Now, this wasn't for Trump personally. This was for his company, but still, no, that's not the best news. Then there's the personal fraud lawsuit by Letitia James, who's the New York State attorney. That's real and ever present. Then there was the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the special master on the stuff seized from Mar-a-Lago. So there are a lot of real serious issues he's dealing with. And you actually apprised me to a column today by Hugh Hewitt, and I'm wondering if you can kind of give a synopsis or cliff notes.
Yeah, sure. Super quick, because we're almost up on this panel, this particular segment. So Hugh Hewitt, he wrote about should Trump be offered the Spiro Agnew deal, which I think in 1973, Spiro Agnew, he agreed rather than face a bunch of charges and spend the rest of his days fighting litigation in court, he would agree to a lesser plea, and no contest, as you say, as you mentioned earlier, Lisa, and basically everything else went away, and he was allowed to just live out the rest of his days after pleading guilty
for
to
people who don't know, he was governor of Maryland, who was vice president of the United States. I don't think we said that yet, and I think a lot of folks who are younger may not know it, so.
They weren't alive.
Come on, everybody remembers Spiro.
He's the reason we have Ford. We had Ford. That was the weirdest. That was a weird political time, all that stuff going down.
Oh, yeah. But yes,
our greatest U.S. president, by the way. I just have to say it because nobody else will. President Ford, that is.
Oh, President Ford. All right.
All right. One final round, Robin. Just a yes, no, or not enough information. A magic 8-ball round on this. Are the troubles that Donald Trump is facing right now, will they impact his electability factor with his base? Scott?
Maybe not the super hyper dense, no light can escape core of the base, probably no, but the more outer rings, which he needs to win, yes, they have and already have. I think that sufficient quantities of those have already moved to DeSantis, and I think that it's all over but the crying for Trump's presidential aspirations.
Sarah, quick one from you.
I agree 100% with Scott. Trump's base is still solid and still fighting for him. But people around the fringes or just involved in the Republican Party are going, okay, but we need to elect somebody. We can't, just because we love the guy doesn't mean that he can be elected. And I think that's going to hinder people right there.
And final word from you, Lisa.
All right, give me the question again. I want to hear the specific question.
Will all these troubles that Donald Trump is facing with his base, will this hurt his electability? Hinder it, or not enough information?
With his base?
With his base.
Absolutely not. It won't change. It won't change the minds of Trump supporters whatsoever.
I
think his base is solid.
I think I agree with Lisa on that one. Guys, we'll be right back. After this short break, we're coming back with our special Christmas panel discussing Christmas hangovers. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back on Liberty Nation Radio dealing with our Christmas wrap-up. Earlier in the show, we discussed the biggest stories of the year, how the ground lays for former President Donald Trump, and also what would conservatives like on this special Christmas wish. And now, as we draw to a close on both the year and the show for this week, the drinks have been drunk, and all that's left is to examine the potential hangover that 2022 has left us with. So to indulge in a little political sore-headedness and regret, we're joined once again by Lisa K. Donner, Sarah Cowgill, and Scott D. Cosenza. Lisa, give me your year-end wrap-up. What are your thoughts, feelings, remembrances?
All right, I'm just coming up with my biggest regret, which is what you originally asked for. You have a way of moving
that is what hangovers
changed the
bring.
question. He's like a prosecutor.
It's a fluid show.
Yeah, it's very fluid.
Like to keep
like
you on
Sam
your feet.
Bankman-Fried when he answered the question. He's answering one
my
that wasn't
biggest
asked.
regret was, and it just kept showing up. Like every time we went to turn on the TV, there it was. It was this Meghan Markle and Harry, the royal guy. I ended up watching 3 parts of it, and it was absolutely.
Are you talking about their Netflix series? You watched 3 parts of it?
I did. I watched 3 parts of it. I absolutely. They kept advertising it, and I thought to myself,
you just couldn't resist.
Okay, I give in. So we watched 1 part, and then we watched another part, and then the 3rd part, all we did was make fun of it. But it's 3 hours of my life that I'll never get back. That is like it was so awful. It was so insipid. It was
Lisa,
confounding. It lacked perspective. It was just plain awful. Lord, forgive me for wasting my time watching this.
it's worse than that, Lisa. You've 3 hours of your life you're never going to get back, but also those 3 hours have been invested in supporting Harry and Meghan.
Oh, the Duke and Duchess of Nowhere.
Your views count towards their ongoing victimhood business model.
It was, I've just never seen anybody that self-involved and without an ability to see outside themselves or get perspective. I mean, it was really sad to see two young people who had so much before them just piss it away. I don't know.
Sarah, what's your
Whiners.
take on the Harry and Meghan debacle of 2022?
I can't. I'm not a big fan of the royal family. I haven't been a big fan of the royal family since Diana. I did love her, but I
Gen
don't
X,
see.
the Gen
I
X
don't see
women are
why
helpless
any of
before
these people
Diana's
are any
downs
concern.
and affairs.
I thought the Queen was a class act.
My ancestors flipped the bird at King George III, and so I'm still holding that torch for them. I don't give a hoot about anything that happens to the royal family. I just don't.
Scott, now I know you are you did try to vie for our position on Liberty Nation as royal correspondent, but unfortunately were rejected because we needed you in the legal world. Give us your take.
For people who don't know, I used to tease you mercilessly when Archie was the big news. That I'd say, Mark, what's the Archie update? And of course, you would squirm and hate to talk about it because you have almost an American level, disdain for the Royals, which I always appreciated. I have not seen the Markle show, and unless that is the only thing on, and somehow the power goes out for every other device in the room, I don't think I'll be watching it. I think that there should be some kind of I'm generally an open borders libertarian, but in this instance, I am in favor of sending him and. She's obviously married a foreign royal, so I think they should both, be sent gently to some Commonwealth country rather than
extradited to a Commonwealth country.
Indeed,
Fiji's nice this time of year. I hear.
I'm sure it's quite nice.
Okay, Mark, we're not going to let you get out of this now. You're a Brit, so give us your 2 cents on the Netflix.
And no doxing of his address.
Of
later,
the Duke
Scott.
and
I know
Duchess
that you might want to, but no doxing.
I have studiously avoided watching any of the proceedings that take place, but I feel that the couple have done a major disservice to a British institution, and whether one appreciates that institution or not, it comes with certain responsibilities that are foisted upon them through birth, Harry specifically, and I think that he's let down his family and his country by getting pulled into this mud wrestling match that's taken place across the nation's press. And obviously it's all the American woman's fault, but there you have it.
Right, it's always
we had
the
it
American
before.
woman.
It happened again, right?
We'll go back to the
Exactly.
day of Mrs.
Edward
Wallace
Simpson.
Wallace Simpson has been
Okay,
born.
Dr. Sarah, give me your prognosis on the 2022 hangover.
Prognosis?
That's a weird way of saying it.
Take aspirin like there's Skittles and drink more, and maybe 2023 will be better. I don't know what to tell you.
What's your biggest thing for the year then?
Biggest regret.
I don't know.
And that is why conservatives are happier than liberals. Right, we'll come back to you on this one, Sarah. Scott, what's it for you?
Well, this is going to change the mood, I think, but I got to say it's the biggest bad story of the year is the Uvalde school response in terms of how people relate to their government. I think that has the potential really to move forward and just change that nature. Now, this idea that the police will protect us has taken a lot of hits, but none so deep or so bad as that, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was really tragic. Yeah,
Yeah, I see what you mean there, Scott, about how it really should change the nature of how we feel about or how the government actually wants us to feel that it's the government's job to protect the citizens. And I think we saw that was an adage that was proved untrue with the tragic events there. And I'm not sure
it's
I agree.
It's a burlesque they used to take our money and our power. that there's no reality to it. And whether that's at the national level or the international level, and now that proved at the local level too.
Yeah, it turned out to be a paper tiger. Sarah, do you have something for us? And we'll be back with Sarah in the
I did my best this year. I don't do regrets. I do what I do. I work my butt off and I try to make people happy, or I try to piss people off. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm good at both of those things. So I don't really have any regrets. Is that okay?
I would like you, Mark. What's your biggest regret, Mark?
I'm actually with Sarah on this one. I was kind of hoping to avoid it because I've had an absolutely wonderful year with a new baby in the world. I've enjoyed just about everything for this year. It's really been fantastic for me. So actually, I want to go around and finish this on a high note. The hangover is lifting, as Kingsley Amis once wrote on his instructions and theories on hard drinking, that the hangover will lift. This feeling of depression that you have is merely just a symptom of the alcohol. So let's go around the panel just to inject a little bit of optimism as we draw to a close. What are the things you're most looking forward to in 2023, Lisa?
Oh my, most looking forward to in 2023. You're gonna have to come back to me, Mark. I don't have anything right at the.
Scott, how about you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm going to keep it on point, and hopefully people will keep up with this progress on the pages of LibertyNation.com, which is that I think that the Supreme Court is going to outlaw and overturn the ability for colleges and universities to discriminate against certain races in admission. And I think it's going to be great for America when we stop counting people because of the color of their skin, like Martin Luther King argued for, and just go by, their achievements. So I'm hoping and wishing the Supreme Court will do that in the new year.
Scott offering world peace in the Christmas gift segment and the end of affirmative action. Two great boons to humanity there, which is pretty neat. Sarah, what about you for 2023?
Popping popcorn and waiting for the show to start, because what else are you going to do? That's what we do in our line of work. There's going to be fireworks. There's going to be blustering and posturing and chest puffing and pearl clutching. And it's going to be a fun ride for the first, 100 days of the new Congress, I think, in my little political brain. So I'm looking forward to just watching the show unfold. Live political theater.
Me too. Lisa, final word for you.
Okay. I am looking forward to getting back to the presidential race, which is going to go into full swing in 2023. And I just like campaigns. I think it's fun. I think politics is fun. Obviously. That's
because the biggest winner in campaigns is the media. We get the clicks.
We're the media. Yeah, we're the media.
Absolutely.
So I'm really looking forward to it. More viewers, more visitors, more listeners.
All right, panel, thank you ever so much, and I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Cheers.
And that's all we have time for on this special edition of Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. My thanks and best wishes go out to our guests Lisa K. Donner, Sarah Cowgill, Scott D. Cosenza, and Frank Diario, our video editor, and of course the team at Radio America. And my biggest thanks are reserved for you, the audience across the nation who take the time to tune in for the show. A very Merry Christmas to you all, and I look forward to seeing you again in the new year. Take care. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.